morning, and welcome to Chapel Chat. I'm Pastor Kevin Little, and this is the chapel at Rantoul First United Methodist Church. Today we're going to talk about spiritual warfare. Pastor Emily mentioned it in her sermon this past Sunday, and I felt like it was something that was worth exploring just a little bit more. Now, in her sermon, Pastor Emily mentioned that she and I had been under attack over the past couple of weeks. Now, that didn't mean that someone wasn't nice to us, or that someone disagreed with something that we were doing. What she was talking about was things going wrong in odd ways in our life. Now, when we talk about spiritual warfare, we're talking about interference in our lives by Satan, trying to keep us from accomplishing something that might reach out to another person on God's behalf. I want you to take a moment and think about the book of Job in the Old Testament. Satan, or the Satan, as it is commonly worded, walks up to God and bets him that he can make Job so miserable that he will turn away from God. Now, it's worth mentioning that Satan just means adversary. So when we read the Satan in Job, it literally means the adversary. This is someone who is opposing God for whatever reason. So Satan bets God he can make Job so miserable that he quits following him. And God says, okay, give it your best shot. So Satan then kills all of his children, wipes out all of his livestock, and kills all of his servants also. He doesn't do any of this personally. He sends different groups to steal the livestock and kill the servants, and a rushing wind to blow a house over on Job's children. Then, because Job still didn't turn away from God, Satan messes with Job's health, giving him painful sores all over his body, making him absolutely miserable. Now, any one of these things could have happened to Job normally as part of his life. Sabaeans could have stolen his oxen. Chaldeans could have raided his camels and killed the servants keeping track of them. And a house could have blown over on his children while they were all together. These easily could have been random events that happened throughout his lifetime. But they all happened to Job on the same day, and that's what made it different. It wasn't just a normal tragedy at this point, it was an intentional attack by the adversary of God. There was nothing Job could do about any of this. He just had to ride it out and keep his faith going. This is the kind of stuff that Pastor Emily was talking about that we had been experiencing. Nothing like having a house fall on our kids or anything like that, and our health is okay. But unpleasant occurrences that were stressful all happened in an unusually short period of time. And like she said, we've seen it before in the past. In previous years, it would be something like one of the kids having a medical emergency. And then we'd deposit a paycheck in the bank like we had been for years. But for some reason, the bank would put a 2-week hold on the funds, so we didn't actually have one of our paychecks in our account when we desperately needed it. And on top of those, then something would malfunction on a car. And in all of this stress, then our relationship would take a sharp negative turn and we'd be at each other's throats. And this then we realized would regularly coincide with me starting another disciple Bible study. We learned through these experiences that when we were about to start something that would make a difference in people's lives and strengthen their connection with God, that we'd see these things happen. Now, it was all stuff that can happen at any given point in time, but they were all packed together at once, like what we see in Job. The only thing that we can do in these situations when they happen is pray. Like what Pastor Emily said in her sermon on Sunday, it's time to armor up. This isn't the moment to curl up in a ball and hide from God. This is the time to step up and rely on God's armor and our connection to Him. It isn't always major things, though, that make up spiritual warfare. Now, I'll be honest, these are the times when it's easiest to realize that it's happening. But this is something that happens to us and around us every single day. If you haven't before, you should read C.S. Lewis's book, The Screwtape Letters. This is a great book that explores the behind-the-scenes happenings of devils trying to interfere with our faith. The things that are described in the book are largely minor, easily dismissed things that don't really impact our daily lives much. But they serve to distract us from God at moments when we shouldn't be distracted. The book provides a great insight into the things that we can get caught up in that end up limiting our faith or the impact that we have on others because we aren't wearing our armor or staying aware enough. You might also look at This Present Darkness by Frank E. Peretti. Now, this book is about angels and demons battling for the souls of a particular town, if I remember right. And it describes spiritual warfare in a much more cinematic way than the C.S. Lewis book does. We don't spend a lot of time talking about spiritual warfare in the church, largely because it can feel odd to talk about. We sound like weirdos when we talk about Satan interfering with our lives. Or worse, we might sound like the church lady from Saturday Night Live. But spiritual warfare is real, and it is shown in Scripture, so it is something that we should probably spend more time talking about, and not less. Thanks for joining Chapel Chat this week. Have a great week.